Coding Rainbow. This is not really the first episode of the new season starting this fall in September, although today is September 1st. Mostly I'm going to say that because I feel very out of sorts. I've installed some new software, I'm trying some new things out. It's been several weeks since I've done a live stream. I'm planning to get officially fully rolling next week, next Tuesday, the day after Labor Day, or possibly next Wednesday. I am going to, for the first time ever this fall, establish a regular schedule. So I will be having an appointed time every week, once per week, and I'm going to also follow, I definitely don't want to use the word syllabus, unless it's spelled S-I-L-L-Y like syllabus. But I'm going to follow a plan. So you're going to be able to see kind of what I'm going to cover each week over the span of this fall. And what I want to use today is to kind of talk about my plans, kind of get myself organized, and just make sure everything's still working so I can kind of get going next week. So I see that the chat is there. I forgot to tweet that I'm live again. So if you guys don't mind bearing with me for a second, I'll put on some music. First of all, can you hear that? Can you hear that applause? It's not real people applauding. I have a new new system. Oh shoot. Hold on. I'm embarrassed to admit that I'm a half an hour late today because I was trying to get some sound software working and the way that I wanted to do it did not work, but this should work. Applause. Theme song. So let me know how this audio, the face place is not working. But you know what, I'm sort of done with the face place. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I actually mean Facebook, I think it's called. Can you let me know, please, how is this going? So I'm hoping to now be able to use this mobile device known as a iPod. I had an Android device I was trying to get to work, and it didn't really work for me, where I can just kind of do my sound effects, because that's really why you're here, apparently. Oh, there's a hole in my shirt, yes. So I thought I would wear the Coding Rainbow t-shirt, and I have some leads on how to make a more international-friendly t-shirt shipping possible. But unfortunately, there's this green stripe in the rainbow, and as this is a green screen, I can show you here very briefly. Right, I'm actually standing in front of a green screen, so this is what this shirt actually looks like. But the problem is this green color is much too similar to the wall behind me. So when I come back to here, there's like a weird little slice. So I don't know, maybe I should button up here so it doesn't look so weird. Of course, I could make it even weirder with my green headband, but. All right, so why do I use all Apple devices? I don't have a good answer for that question. Someday I will branch out into the world of non-Apple devices. I'm sort of like caught. I'm sucked in. I can't get out. I keep trying to get out, but they keep pulling me back in. I'm looking at the chat. Okay, so I have a water in the other room. Give me a moment here, please. And okay, so I'm so happy to see all these greetings online. It's so nice. Again, I'm kind of just trying to get set up here. So let me start by doing a couple things. Let me introduce myself. This is and what's going to happen this fall. And somebody take notes, because I got to talk through a whole lot of plans I have, and I got to somehow get organized and figure out how to bring all of this into fruition. So I have a website. It is called codingrainbow.com. Here you can see that I am currently live. Look at this. I'm going to press play right here. I got to turn the audio off. Hopefully, I think it's okay. Let me know if you're hearing a weird, crazy feedback where you hear my past self talking. Yikes. Okay. So, look, it's like infinite. Look at that. I love this, like. We just keep zooming in forever and ever. Okay, so this is a live internet show about programming and creative coding. I am here, and I'm going to be here once per week teaching various topics. So the first thing you could do if you're new here is certainly just subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will get notices when a new video has been published or when I'm going live. If you're interested in tuning into the live streams, I'm finally going to establish a regular time, which I will announce shortly. It's going to be Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning, it's looking like at this point. And I will make that announcement on Twitter and over here, and also in my email list, which you can subscribe. Now, the other thing that I have done here is I am using a service called Patreon. Patreon is a crowdfunding platform that's different than something like a Kickstarter, which is kind of like a one-time purchase. It's a subscription model. And so the course, the content that I'm planning to cover this fall, let's see, A to Z-F16. I started, oops, and that's the wrong, Shiftman / A to Z F16. This is a course that I am teaching at ITP, which is a 2-year master's program at Tisch School of the Arts, which is at New York University. And this is the syllabus, spelled SILLYBUS, for that course. You can see that it is a course that is all about programming with text in JavaScript in the browser using both server-side and client-side JavaScript and various creative applications. I'm going to cover I'm going to cover things like regular expressions, which you may not know what those are. If you don't, then you've come to the right place. I'm going to look at working with data and APIs. I'm going to look at Node and Twitter bots, which I've actually already done the videos for. I'm going to look at text analysis and different algorithms for text generation, look at Chrome extensions. We're going to look more at Node, various things like this. So this is kind of my plan. Each week I'm going to do some of these topics. So the topics will always happen in my live YouTube stream, which is the thing that I'm kind of practicing again right now. And then, in addition, if you want to participate in a Slack channel where you can post and share assignments or ask questions or discuss the content of the course, you can subscribe to the Patreon. So I'm going to click here. And one of the things I want to do today, actually, is I want to record. So if I go to this Become a Patron link, let's click on this. If I go here, you can see here, this is, I think, the video. I think this is like the video that would show up by default. And so I need to make some sort of like quick, hi, my name is Dan, welcome to Patreon. These are the kinds of things you're gonna, why I'm doing this and this is what you know. So I need to do that at some point today so I can put that on Patreon, because right now if you go to Patreon, my intro video is just the Menger sponge. So the other thing that I'm thinking about, so the $5 a month per month level, it sounds like this ridiculous sort of sales thing that I'm doing, but this is an experiment that I'm trying in addition to teaching my physical course in person at ITP. I'm gonna try to teach it online, but sort of custom bake my own thing, not through a big online education company. So the $5 a month subscription will give you access to that Slack channel. Well, that's good. Christian in the chat writes, the Menger sponge vid was the one to hook me. So I don't know, maybe I should have kept that. Now, I'm thinking of adding a $10 level. I've really been loath to do this, but I've had some requests in which I will also send you a care package. And I don't have a care package will include some stickers. I don't know if you can see these very well, but these are some lovely stickers. They're also on my laptop. And I will also send you copies of Nature of Code book, some other things like that. So I might put that together. If you're interested in that, let me know. I'm kind of, now that I say this, I'm even not so sure that I want to do this. But right, you could just, by the way, I will give you the stickers for free if I happen to see you in person because I carry them with me. But you can also purchase them at Sticker Mule. Let's see if Sticker Mule Coding Rainbow Google search comes up. Yep, comes up. So you can also just get them yourself if you're so interested in these stickers. I think if you buy a sticker, I get like 15 cents or something like that. Okay, so this is. So that's kind of that's my plan for the fall. So I want to try to spruce up the Patreon page, get a regular schedule going. And get some more online discussion and questions and kind of see how that goes. And I'm thinking, and if this goes well, I'll do another course in the spring, probably on physics simulation, generative algorithms, and machine learning. I know a lot of people have been requesting machine learning stuff, and I've been doing some genetic algorithm videos, and I've made some quick experiments in building a processing library and done some other stuff looking at Node with JavaScript and different machine learning libraries. But it's looking more and more like that's going to get pushed back a bit further as I kind of try to get things going for this fall. Sirajalaji, hello. I would love to chat. Okay, so that. Oh my God, how are there 132 people watching? It must be that I actually announced that I was going to do this. Oh boy, I better make this good. I don't know, maybe some people came for the dancing. Apparently I have a very bad or good habit of just like, I get like stressed out and full of anxiety and just start playing some music and dancing. Okay, so that's kind of now. Another thing that I'm planning to start doing this fall, and I've got to start scheduling that probably the week after next it'll start, is I'm going to have some guests. So I'll say more about that in the future, but I'm going to have some guests come and show some things or maybe do some guest tutorials. And those of you, I've gotten messages from folks who are interested in participating in that. I'm going to see if I can get a system for that going first, and then I'll be able to kind of see how I can include other people. No, one request in the chat for no dancing. Okay, the this dot song, yes. Okay. All right, I don't know how long I can oblige the no dancing. I'll do back propagation if that's somehow like a dance where it's like back propagation somehow. I think I might have pulled something. That was a little bit dangerous. Okay. All right. So the other thing I want to look at now is the Rainbow Topics GitHub list. So one thing that you may or may not be aware of if you are new is that I keep track of topics that I intend to someday explore and questions that I would like to answer on this Rainbow Topics GitHub repository. And and so things that I am looking at doing today, I've sort of made a little thread for this. So I want to follow, I made a video tutorial about CodePen, and I want to follow up on some of the things on that tutorial. Maybe you want to look at or think about or talk about adding networking to my Agario example. I left off in August with looking at the traveling salesperson problem and solving it with a brute force algorithm, and I wanted to expand that to use a genetic algorithm. I want to make a Patreon video. I discuss my fall plan and scheduling, which I've done, and I think that I would like to talk about Processing and p5.js as two creative coding platforms that are part of the Processing Foundation that I work on and contribute to, and what those are, how they're different, and how you can contribute to those things, and what's kind of coming for this fall. So this is kind of what I'm thinking about for today. Let's take a look through the topic list. And I'm going to sort it. I probably shouldn't do this. I'm going to sort it like this. We can see just to see if there's anything. Actually, what I kind of wanted to look for was questions, to see if there were some questions that I wanted to also try to answer. Okay, so yes. You know what I really would love to do today, but I guess I want, is Also, I am broadcasting this to Twitch, I believe, although I'm not looking at the Twitch chat, somebody asks. So I also would love to do, I would love to do sometime this fall, keep reminding me about this, something about how to make a processing library and how to work with processing in Eclipse. Okay, so let me go back to here. And, all right, so I don't know. I'll start by answering a question that's been asked in the chat. Brian Wu asks, hey, can you tell us how you got into programming? I can. How I got into programming was actually through this program that I now teach at called ITP. I had done, I'd done other little sort of dabbling in programming things here and there, but I discovered programming through the creative arts and ITP, which sort of lives in an art school, and using programming as a tool to realize new and interesting ideas. So that's really actually how I got into programming. This is kind of not that interesting of an answer. But I first there learned actually programming using Macromedia Director and the Lingo programming language. Then I kind of got into Java a bit, and from there I discovered processing in around 2003 and got involved with processing as an open source project since then. And a couple years ago, a couple years ago I started working with JavaScript and p5.js. So let me see here. Let me do, probably should be, so by the way, if anybody has any suggestions for a good iOS application that I could use as a soundboard, please let me know. I tried a couple, and then it's like a big pain to like load the sound files on there. So I only have applause. Thank you very much. And my somebody composed that song for me. Coding Rainbow theme song. Bumper music. Okay. Yeah, I do definitely need to do an updated video with my setup. Okay. So let's see. It is about 2:20 in the afternoon. I'm not prepared for this. And let's see, can I make this, do this? Okay, here we go. Let's close this. So I want to think about, okay. 163 people is insane. This is, I'm at my worst right now. It's like, but since so many of you are here, time to tweet so we could get to 200. Okay, I didn't, so why not? So bear with me for a second. I'm going to Twitter, and I'm going to tweet. I am live now for a pre-season coding Rainbow test episode. I'm calling this a test episode. Because that's kind of what it is. Wow, this is crazy. There's so many people watching. I better do something interesting. Okay, sorry, let me get back to the chat. I'm just like out of practice with my systems and everything. Okay. All right, so I am going to start today with a question which I asked myself apparently. So I think I'm going to make, this is going to go into my Q&A playlist. And what I want to sort of use this video as, and I realize that a lot of you who are watching are maybe experienced programmers or familiar with these platforms, and so you can either tune out for a little while and go do something else, or just leave me on in the background if you like, or you can tune in and watch and kind of help give me some feedback as to what makes sense and that sort of thing. So what I want to do, will the evolutionary TSP be in this episode? I hope so. I'm having a conflict, which is that I've had so many people request that I finish the traveling salesperson problem, and I've had so many people request that I do networking with the Agario game, and I can't seem to decide which is more requested or not. Oh, I forgot I have my bell. Yes, if you are hungry, please eat something. That I think is a good idea. So what I want to use this video for is I want to use this video as kind of a, hello, it's the fall. Maybe you are taking a course. This could be a video that my students would watch who are about to enroll in Introduction to Computational Media. And I want to use this just to talk about the current landscape of creative coding platforms. A Twitter poll time. I could do a Twitter poll. I'll do a Twitter poll. Let's just see. So if you, on the Twitter poll, I'm going to, I'm going to just make it like 1 hour, a very short poll. Like 1 hour would be way too long actually, because I hopefully get to this in about a half an hour. So I make a poll. I'm /Schiff@Schiffman on Twitter. Agar.io networking, TSP with genetic algorithm, traveling sales person. Okay, genetic TSP. Topic priority for today. Poll length 0 days. How about just 30 minutes? I'm going to leave this poll going for 30 minutes. There it is on Twitter. I'll bring this up right here so those of you can vote. And I think if I'm logged into my Twitter, I'll be able to actually live see the results. Yep. So here we go. That's I'm going to leave this in the background. Please vote here, and I'll just start. Oh, 1 hour left. I think I made it for just 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes, whatever this is at, that's going to be the decision. It's not even up to me. Whoa, 7 votes. Okay, that was exciting. That was an exciting moment. So far, Agario's in the lead. Genetic TSP, really, that sounds like some sort of disease that you could contract. So could probably come up with a better name for that. Okay. So here we are again. Let me get back to the chat. Thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is really a thrill for me to get to do this and hear from people all over the world who are watching and who have questions and are enjoying these videos that I'm doing. And I apologize for, mostly I get like, 9 out of 9, 39 out of 40 feedback emails or tweets are like, oh, I like the weird, dancing, strange, awkward, whatever. And then 1 out of those is like, you're really annoying. You're really annoying. Please, like, calm down. And those really sit in the back of my mind. So I don't know. I'm feeling a little, for some reason, I'm feeling a little uneasy. It's also just weird to be in this room by myself. I can't see you. There's nobody here. I can't hear any. Just like, it's a very strange thing. Okay. So let's start with our first Q&A. And I just want to make sure I am hooked up so I can go to the whiteboard. I can go here. You know what I want to do? Sorry, I want to download the most recent version of processing. And I'm going to do that. And 70-30. Okay, processing is downloaded, 5 seconds left. I'm going to just copy this to the desktop. And, okay. Let's see how this is going. Ooh, Agario networking. Boy, that's the one I know how to do the least. That'll be interesting. Yes, Chris Jordan also mentions I was going to make the ellipses a bit more wobbly and not so perfectly round all the time. Yes, I will. Let's remind me of that when I get to it, because it looks like Agario is probably winning. Okay. Is this the... Okay. All right. All right, so here we go. And I'm recording this and I'm streaming live. Let me cycle the cameras. And I'm sorry for today. It's so amazing how large the audience is today. And today was sort of like I'm just going to test things out to make sure they're still working. Take the top off of this. T here. Okay, here we go. Hello, welcome to a Q&A video. In this particular video, I am going to talk about, I'm going to answer this question. Now, you might notice on this GitHub repository that it was this person whose name is Schiffman who asked this question. So somebody asked me this question. I get this question a lot. And so I just added it to the GitHub repo. But I would like to point out, if you're watching this video and you're interested in asking me a question that I might answer in a future video, find the link to this GitHub repository in this video's description. Go there and ask your own question. So the question for today is, what is the difference between p5.js and processing? And I'm going to answer this. By the way, I haven't prepared anything, so it's going to be kind of stream of consciousness here. But I'm going to answer this in a sort of broader sense. So one of the things that's happening right now, this very week for me, is that I am teaching a class at ITP, which is a program at Tisch School of the Arts, New York University, called Introduction to Computational Media. This is a class for people who want to learn to program, who have never written any code before whatsoever in their life. And this is another question that gets asked a lot. Oh, hey, I'm interested in this code stuff. I want to write some code. What should I learn? What should I use? Now, I don't even for a brief millisecond pretend to actually have the answer to that question. I don't, that the answer to that question is different for a number of reasons, but for your personal preferences, background, interests, that sort of thing. So many languages, frameworks, tutorials, etc. I can only sort of speak from my own experience in the sort of smaller scope of one of the things that I'm interested in and work on personally, which are tools that allow people to get up and running with programming very quickly and sketch out ideas, in particular creative ideas, often ideas that have a strong visual component. Now, and the tools that I enjoy for these kinds of projects and for learning code and sketching out these kinds of ideas are, and just happen to be coincidentally, p5.js and processing. So I want to talk a little bit about the history, and this is really now a video that is, in some ways I'm focusing, I already have this URL open, on something called the Processing Foundation. So the Processing Foundation is a non-for-profit United States 501c3 tax-exempt corporation. Sounds very official and like ominous. Processing Foundation. And it exists to maintain software platforms as well as develop and administer education, community and diversity initiatives around code and creativity. And you can read about the Processing Foundation on the website, and I encourage you to get involved. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can get involved, at least in contributing to open source, maybe more towards the end of this particular video. So I encourage you to check out the Processing Foundation. Now let me talk through, for those of you who might be interested, my sense of the history. History teacher, I don't know, okay. My sense of the history of processing and what it is and what p5.js is, and also I want to talk about processing.py or py. And then there's also processing for the Raspberry. There's so much, but let's start small. So 2001, I think I actually have done a lot of this in another video, but I'm kind of repeating it just to kind of give some context here. So 2001, processing, and it was recently actually the 15th anniversary of processing itself. Ben Fry, one of the creators of processing, tweeted out a link to a workshop. I'll try to find that and put it in this video's description. It's not coming to me this moment. But there was the first kind of public workshop using processing was in August of 2001, if I'm correct about that. So the co-creators of processing, Ben Fry, Casey Reese. And processing itself came out of their work at a place which still exists, of course, which a lot of you have probably heard of, called the MIT Media Lab. And their professor at the time, named John Maida, world-renowned designer, artist, luminary, thinker, former president of RISD, professor at the MIT Media Lab, John Maida. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name at all. Anybody's name throughout the course of this video. So the group was called the Aesthetics and Computation Group. That was the research group at the time. And it would be great to have Ben and Casey just as sort of like bobbling heads here. They don't need to be bobbling, but to actually talk here. But there's I think a reason why processing came into existence. On the one hand, you're a person whose name happens to be Ben Fry or Casey Reese in 2001. You want to teach people about programming. What do you use? There was a piece of software known as Design by Numbers at the time, which was created by John Maida. And this was a software platform that was designed for graphic designers to code. And so a lot of the ideas of processing came out of Design by Numbers. And of course, so many things came before that. We can think of the logo programming language, and Turtle Graphics, and HyperCard and the work of Seymour Papert and all sorts of various other types of kind of historical precedents for this idea of creativity through coding. But the idea here, boy, am I being really long-winded about this. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. I can't see the chat now. Maybe everybody's left. My 163 viewers has gone down to like 15. But so this is kind of where everything came from, this idea of, okay, number one, a tool that let's say I'm the person who's going to create processing. Why am I doing it? One, I want to make my own work, so I need something with which to make my own work. I also want to teach others to make creative work. I need something to teach others. So one of the things that's been there from the very beginning with processing is walking this fine line between a kind of beginner-friendly, easy-to-get-started platform that you can use right from day one and write code and get stuff going in a simple and friendly way, as well as a platform that you can actually use for larger projects, commercial work, artistic work, creative ideas, sketching out ideas as you get more and more knowledge through code. So it's something that can give you a full journey. So the question then in this time is, well, what is a good programming language to build processing with and build on top of? Now, one of the limitations of design by numbers was that all it really lets you do, if I'm correct about this, is make interesting algorithmic geometric graphics through code. But what if you wanted to connect hardware or talk to the network or have your graphic sketch visualize data? Or hardware being other types of obviously camera, but that's hardware. So one of the reasons that processing was built on top of Java is that suddenly, if you have this simple, friendly environment with a simple drawing API, but you build it with the language Java, you're going to get all this other stuff for free. It's going to be extendable. You can write other libraries for it. You can pull other Java libraries into it. There was also at the time something called an applet. And one of the key pieces of processing has always been, the key sort of philosophical principles has been shareability. So I'm going to make something, I want to share it with my friends quickly, easily, instantly, and the web is a great platform with which to do that. I hope everything's still working, yes. Okay, now, so applets were the thing in 2001. If you have this animated graphics thing that you made and you want to put it in a web page, you put it with a Java applet. As anybody watching this now, you either have never heard of an applet or the only sense of an applet is like a frustrating moment where there's some web page is trying to load a Java applet and you get like 50 different error messages, try to restart and reinstall Java like 3 times and it still never works, and eventually you give up and do something else. So this is kind of where processing came from. So let me show you now over here. I'm back over here. I'm taking a peek at the chat. People are asking about Arduino, which is kind of interesting to bring that into the picture as well. But I'm going to run the current version of processing right now. And I'm going to open it. And so this is what processing is and in its form today. Come on, processing. If it would come up, I could then have this applause. Did it come? What happened there? Oh, it's there. There it is. So this is what processing looks like. And I can do something like just say background. Oh, and let's make the font a bit bigger. And I can do something like this. And I can say, and I can run this sketch. And there we go. And I have my first bit of code. So the idea here is that I am writing code in Java, but a lot of what you would normally have to do your first day of a Java programming class where you need to like have a main thing and a class thing and then set up your environment variables and open up something called Eclipse maybe or command line. All of that is done for you inside of the processing development environment itself. So processing is both a library of functions and classes you can call and do stuff with, like background, here's a nice sort of pink background, ellipse, which draws a circle on the screen, and a development environment itself. And this development environment has come a long way in 15 years. There is a console here, there's a separate errors pane. When you have errors, you can see here if I forget my semicolon, suddenly you'll see missing a semicolon on line number 2 and a little red squiggly here. And if I then put the semicolon back, the red squiggly goes away. There's even a debugger over here. I think I made a video tutorial about the debugger that's on the processing website. There are, I can go to Sketch, import library, add whoops. There's a whole contributions manager. So if I go here, I can find countless libraries to do various things with cameras and other pieces of hardware and color and GUI elements and physics engines. So there's lots and lots of things I can do with processing. I'm getting text messages which I was worried were like, everything's not working. Okay, so so this is processing. Now, I really should just scrap this and start over because I could answer the differences between processing p5.js rather quickly, and instead I'm going through the sort of history thing. So let me come over here. You know, if I were in an actual classroom with people, I would get a read of the room, a vibe. People would raise their hands. I would have a sense. Instead, I'm just speaking to this thing, which is like a little circle here. And it's a nice little thing, but it doesn't really talk back to me. Okay, so let's think about, let me talk about a little bit what's now happening. So so the processing, this is really, this history now has many, many years. From 2001 all the way, I would say I believe around 2013 was when one of the first conversations started to happen around what if processing, the way you could think of this question of what if processing started over? So instead of thinking about, okay, so there have been a lot of projects to port processing to another environment. So take a literal translation of the entire API, by API I mean all of the functions and things that processing can do, and translate it to another language. Notably, I'll mention two of them. One of them is called processing.py, which is a Python version of processing. And in fact, if I come back over here, I can access that instantly up here under Java. I can actually switch here to Python. Now, I don't think this Python will show up here by default. You have to first go to add mode and then add Python. But if I switch to Python, I can suddenly type Python code in here and run processing sketches using the Python programming language and access the entire processing API. There is another project called processing.js. And this project, this is very confusing because all these are named processing. This was a project first created by John Resig, which does something even more magical than just taking all of the processing API and translating it into JavaScript for a canvas element in the browser. What John Resig was able to do is not only port processing to JavaScript so you could make processing calls in JavaScript, but this also has an engine to take your processing code and translate it behind the scenes for you into JavaScript, essentially. So you could write your processing code in Java and have it run in the browser in JavaScript through an auto magical process. Now, so this processing is a project maintained by the foundation itself. Processing.py is also a project maintained by the foundation. Processing.js was a separate project, as I said, created and started by John Resig. I believe it's now also used as an engine for the Khan Academy, a lot of the Khan Academy tutorials. I believe if it's still the case that John Resig does work with for Khan Academy. And at one point then, Processing.js was taken over by some folks who work with the Mozilla Foundation, and I don't know if I have all the pieces of the history of that directly into my head. I haven't been as involved with that particular project. But this question in 2013 came up, what if processing were to start over? And someone that I would like to mention here is Lauren McCarthy. Processing Found, one of the things we do as a foundation is we offer fellowships, small stipends, to people who propose a project around a code library, an education initiative, a diversity initiative. And at the time, Lauren McCarthy, I believe, was one of the first processing fellows to think about and answer this question. And so the question and I'm not saying this question was actually posed, but I'm thinking about it this way for now, just for the sake of argument. You know, there's a lot of different paths that you could take, I think, and you could make good cases for all of them. But this idea of shareability, the idea of simplicity, back to the sort of design by numbers core ideas of simplicity for withdrawing, and shareability on the web, everything came back to JavaScript again and again and again. So on the one hand, you could say, okay, processing.js already exists. What is the reason for having yet another JavaScript version, so to speak, of processing? And I think what Lauren said and what Lauren did, and now many others have done and contribute to, beyond just Lauren who started this project, was sort of say, well, this project called p5.js, and I want to talk about the little p in a moment, this project called p5.js is not just about saying processing is this thing that people like. Let's port it to JavaScript. But let's not port the code or the names of all the functions or how everything works. Let's port the goals, the philosophies, the principles behind processing. Openness, friendliness, accessibility, design, visuals, art. Let's port all of those kind of core principles and ideals of processing and take those and design a new platform around those ideas in a new environment. Because if you're in the browser, it doesn't necessarily make sense to do things the same way they've worked in what's now essentially a desktop application development environment processing. So, and you know what? I'm realizing this video that I'm making is kind of the history of processing in p5.js. And I'm going to make a separate video which just looks at the differences between the two. And I'll make some code examples that go back and forth. So I'm not actually answering that question in this video, but that's fine. So, so this, I think, is really the idea. And JavaScript is such a different place than Java. And being on the web is such a different place than being in a desktop application. There's so many things that are different. Most notably, I'll mention two things right now. One is that in addition to all the drawing functionality that's part of processing, p5.js has a DOM manipulation library. And what I mean by that is, and I've kind of made this crazy map here, and I almost like don't want to erase anything, so I'm just going to use this little corner over here. If this is your processing window that you're drawing your lovely spiral pattern in, that's all you get in processing, your graphics window. If this is your web browser and you're working in p5.js and you create a canvas where you draw your spiral in it, you get that in p5.js as this canvas, but you also get more because the canvas is just one element sitting on the web page. And you could have some paragraphs, you could have an image, you could have like a little audio player. You can create so much more around the canvas on that web page, and that's what p5.js also offers. It's not just as processing is to Java, it's built on top of Java. p5.js is built on top of JavaScript, but it also has hooks into HTML. So here I think, really Java. There's also hooks into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so I'm kind of wrapping up this discussion of the history here. Since this is, you might be watching this just as a video. I don't know if you will, but maybe you will. I'm going to check now. This is at the moment happening as a live stream. So I'm just looking in the chat to see if there are any questions or corrections. So if you're watching this now and you said something 15 minutes ago in the chat, but it was important, maybe add it again. And so here I come back over here and I'm going to look. I don't actually see anything in the chat. So I think perhaps I'm going to wrap up this video. And what I'm going to do in the next video is I'm going to actually look at processing and p5.js side by side and see how they work together and how some of the code is actually different and similar and what some of the capabilities are, what's faster here, what's slower here, what works better here, that type of thing. Yes, JavaScript is slower. Okay, so thanks for watching this video, a little bit about the history of processing and p5. I forgot something important. So I want to talk about the little p because JavaScript libraries actually, if you'll notice, often start with a capital P. And I'm going to have to find, you have to bear with me for a second. I'm going to go to github.com/processing p5.js. I'm going to go under issues. I'm going to search for capital P. p5 with a capital P. And I want to just read this to you because I want people to hear this. And Lauren, I hope we'll have as a guest. You can read a great interview with Lauren, and that was just done by Cadenze, and I'll try to link to that in this video's description. I can have her as a guest to make these statements herself, but since I'm here on YouTube right now, I believe strongly in the work that Lauren is doing and that the Processing Foundation is doing to make these open source environments more inclusive and accessible. And so I want to just essentially read this statement to you, which is a little bit of a weird thing to do on a YouTube channel, to just read something that's in a GitHub issue. If you want to click and read it yourself, you can stop this video now. But there was a GitHub issue thread that started P5 with a capital P, and the question was sort of posed like, hey, there's this kind of a little bit of an advanced thing if you haven't programmed before that you'll see. New P5 is a way of doing this kind of crazy, make an instance of a P5 sketch, and a sort of JavaScript standard might be capital P5, right? If you're making a new instance of a JavaScript library, you might say it with a capital P. And Lauren wrote this response, which I think really, I think, speaks to some of the goals and principles of the project. Okay. Totally hear you. Indeed, namespaces in JS are generally capitalized. This is a good point. However, we chose the lowercase p to indicate that we are breaking with tradition a bit with this library. That is, breaking the tradition of capitalizing, but also trying to break with the tradition of many open source projects that are male-dominated, lacking diversity, and privileging experienced developers in discussion over beginners. And so to this end, we are explicit in the community statement and the GitHub code of conduct. So I highly encourage any of you who are interested in open source and processing in p5.js to go to this issue and click on and read the community statement and the GitHub code of content. And are really trying to see what happens if you build an open source toolkit founded on core values of diversity and inclusivity. And this relates back to something here, which is that this question that I asked at some point in this video, which is, what if processing started over? And this is something that Lauren said to me, which I think is a key principle of p5.js. The question isn't just, what is it that we should be doing right now to make a creative coding platform technology-wise? That's not the question. It's not about make sure we support ES6 and the fanciest new, like, whatever thing that's in the browser now. What's happening in the world today? How do we make something that responds to the cultural landscape of today that breaks with some of these kind of traditions in open source development that have excluded a lot of people of varying backgrounds and skill levels and genders and et cetera. So that's really sort of a key core principle. It's not just about the code. It's not this thing. Diversity and thinking about diversity is not a thing you do after you write the code. It's something you have to do right from the beginning of a project itself. We are really trying to see what happens if you build an open source toolkit founded on core values of diversity and inclusivity, letting all design decisions flow from there. There's a lot more, and Lauren writes, for me, the lowercase p suggests a new tradition of including as many different kinds of people as possible in the project. And I like this. I like the word plucky little p, plucky little community. And there's some more discussion here, which, and this also I'll mention, this is a nice little tidbit for those of you. Which is that where does this P5 come from? So actually, when processing was first created, there was a URL, which was I like to say process-5ing, because processing wasn't actually available. So it had two 5s in it instead of S's, and which became P5 for short. So processing has often been referred to as P5 for short, and now little lowercase p with a 5 .js for JavaScript. Okay, so boy, this was a very long video that if you watched and enjoyed, I appreciate it. I see in the chat people are asking me to talk about network programming, but I got to get through this stuff. There's some more interesting discussion here. So thanks for watching this video about the history of processing, a little bit about it. I'm sure I missed some important things. I'm sure I missed some important people's names. And so if you have comments and thoughts about it, please add them in the comments. Send me a tweet. And I'm going to do one more video that's really back to this Q&A thing about the sort of like technical differences between processing and p5.js. Okay, thanks, folks. So I see, If you guys have requests about particular topics and you post them over and over again in the chat, it's not really going to help me get to it any faster. Okay, let's see here. Now, let me go to the Twitter poll. Look at this. I'm definitely going to do some networking today. I'm excited about it. I'm going to give it a try. Okay. Thanks, Alvaro, for keeping an eye on the chat, trying to keep things organized there, and posting links in there. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, so it is 3 o'clock. Running out of time. Those of you who are expecting Agario networking, got to get to it. But let me just move along here and do part 2 to this really quickly. Let me do part 2 of this, and I'm going to kind of open up both processing and p5.js and look at them side by side a little bit. So I'm going to use this p5 desktop editor. I'm going to not bother with a newer one right now. And just, little tidbit for those of you. There is a new feature. Let's make this a separate video in a second. I'll come back to that in a second. Somebody's reporting that there's some chroma key issues. Nothing I can do to fix that right now, but people keep an eye on that. And if people are seeing that, please keep me posted about it. Okay. So let me get sort of set up here. Sidebar off. Okay. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to come back to this. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that. Where's my web browser? I don't know what. Here, I lost the pages I had open. Code, no, issues, labels, question, and there. Okay. It happens when yeah, I can see that. So I can work on fixing that. I'm going to not bother with that too much right now if it's not a big problem. Okay. Okay, I think I'm back here. Hopefully I'm back. Sorry about this, you guys. Welcome back. This is not going very well today, but it's good. I just needed you're right, there could be an issue with Wirecast 7. I actually noticed that there's actually an updated version of Wirecast 7, which maybe I'll try. I was getting this freezing problem even without Wirecast 7, but we'll see. Wirecast 7 has some features that are really useful to me, so I would like to see if I can use it. Okay, so volume-wise, you're fine volume-wise. Great. Okay. All right, let's try to move this along here, folks. I've got more headbands and things on. Okay, so let me look at Agario here for a second, our little tiny version of it. And one thing that somebody posted was the speed that you're moving is actually related to how far you are from the mouse. In other words, if I move the mouse closer, I'll kind of slow down and stop. So I think that would be a good thing to add as an improvement. So, some people are in the chat are saying that they're maybe not Oh yeah, okay, but maybe you guys are working this out. Okay, so let me just look at, let's make this a little improvement for a second. And let's look at, this is how the object moves, if you recall from the previous tutorial. These are like itchy. And this is just a little bit too weird. This is, I basically create a vector that's pointing from the center of the screen to the mouse. And then I just set that vector automatically to a magnitude of 3. And then kind of interpolate towards that vector, so I sort of smoothly move to it. Another thing I could do is actually just say new velocity limit 3. So instead of setting it to 3, I just cap it at 3. That way, if you're actually closer, this would be only if you're closer than 3 pixels, which I think isn't going to be very good. But the idea here is that, you know, I would slow down, but it's I can get myself, but that's only if I'm within 3 pixels. So let's actually, I think what would be worth doing is saying, let's take that new velocity and like divide it by 10 and then limit it to 3, or maybe divide it by 100 even. Let's try 50. And that way you can see faster, faster, slow down. So is this more like Agarrio? I'm only moving if, I think this is like a really small but like useful improvement, yes? Okay, are people able to watch the live? People in the chat are for some reason not, is somebody seeing me live right now? So I don't know what I'm not sure what to do about YouTube not working, because I think I am streaming live. Okay. So that's taken care of. That's a little tiny improvement that I think is worth doing. And I'm just going to reply into that issue and I'm going to sign in as me to GitHub. And then I'm going to say on today's live stream, I added this feature by adjusting the vector calculation, like so. So you guys can find this on GitHub. By the way, a little tidbit for you if you didn't know. On GitHub, if you are adding code into a comment, normally I would just do this, and then I would add the 3 backticks at the bottom, right? That's going to render as a code block. But if I want syntax highlighting, I can put the programming language right there. And then if I click comment, you'll see that I actually got this little code snippet with syntax highlighting. Little tidbit for those of you if you didn't know. Hopefully you guys are seeing this live. Okay, so now what I need to do, it is 3:15. I've got about an hour to work on this, okay? So I'm going to take about an hour right now to go through how to add networking to this Agarrio example code. And at a certain point, I'm going to start as if this is going to be a standalone video tutorial. So let me see. And I know Chris Jordan had mentioned this sort of like making them blobby, and I do want to see if I can get to that, but I want to focus on the networking thing. So what I actually want to do is, if you're not aware, if I go to my YouTube channel, I already have an introduction to Node with WebSockets, so I'm going to kind of bypass that, and I'm just going to go to the, I'm going to try to find that playlist for you guys. I don't know why I don't see it. WebSockets, here we go. So this tutorial is about WebSockets and p5.js. There's an introduction to Node. There's using Express with Node. There's connecting a client server with socket.io and the shared drawing canvas. So I'm going to go grab that example real quick. And I'm going to grab that. Where is that? What's that called? Shared canvas, Node. Okay, I know where to get it. Rainbow code. I'm going to go to sockets. It's called, and here, so here it is under the Rainbow code repository. Do I have that downloaded somewhere? Yes, I do. So let me grab here. sockets. So I'm going to grab this example, put it here in Agarrio, and then I'm going to go to terminal again, and I'm going to go into sockets and do node server, and I'm going to say npm install. So I'm skipping over some things, which are that what is Node, how do you set up a Node project, and how do you use the socket module to connect a client to a server. And then this is going to become important, the terminal later, so I'm going to get this a little bit more featured. So let's just see if this is in fact still working, this example. So, ooh, why is it so interesting? So I'm going to draw a circle like this here, and we should see it there, and then I'm going to draw two stripes down the side like this, and we see those on this one. So this is sort of hard for you to see what's going on here, but I'll make this a little bit more explicit. This is an example that has it's like, I should adjust it. Let me adjust it here, because it's kind of insane how, I don't know why this is so big and why the canvas is so small. So what this example does, so I should fix that. Somebody wants to update, give me a pull request on GitHub. So you can see what I'm doing here. As I'm drawing on this side, it appears on this side. And as I'm drawing on this side, that went away, but if I minimize this, you can see as I'm drawing here, it appears on the other side. So so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this on the fly. I have not done this before. I don't know that I even have a good sense of how to do it, so this is going to be figuring it out together. But I'm about to start part 2 of the Agarrio coding challenge, adding networking. And so what I'm going to do is bring the Agarrio code into this Node project and change the server so that instead of sharing drawing, you're sharing your location and other messages are sent for when you're eaten or not eaten. Now, if anybody in the chat could help me out for a second. And I realize you're probably like 10 or 15 seconds behind, but let's say here are two people playing. I need to figure out how to make this work. Let's say you're two people playing Agarrio, or the only two people playing it. You start like this, and you start like this. So maybe you start over here, right? Okay, so hold on. So one person is going to be a square, one person is going to be a circle. And it looks like this. So what happens if you meet and you're like the same size? Who eats whom? How can I create an artificial scenario? Should I just create an artificial scenario where like one player randomly starts bigger than the other one? You just get a random size. And so obviously if there's a lot of people playing and things are growing over time, it'll sort of like work itself out. But just to like get it started and have a 2-player demo, what makes sense for me to do? If anybody has any suggestions to that, please. Okay. The bigger eats the smaller, and if they just overlap, if they have the same value, they hover on each other. If they're the same size, no one eats no one. I've played a little, but if they're the same side, you bounce off each other, I think. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to, I'm not going to create as sophisticated a version of Agarrio as the real game is. You need to be 90% of the size. Okay, thank you. One with more speed. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I think, is give you a random size when you start, and I might kind of hard code that in, even just so, and then I'll build in the feature that if you're the same size, you actually don't eat each other, something like that. Okay, great. Okay, so so here we go. So this is going to be Agarrio with networking. And I'm going to just get myself ready here. I've got Atom open, and I'm going to make this happen. Okay, so close this, close this, close this. I just want to check something. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. I'll cycle the cameras. If it's 4:30 and I'm still here, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and I'm still here, you guys should start yelling at me because I have to be at a meeting at ITP, which is maybe a 15-minute city bike ride at 5 o'clock. Okay. Here we go. I'm ready for this. I'm excited. I don't have sound effects today. I screwed up too much stuff. I think I do have this, though. Oh. It's only actually playing. I'm not going to bother with setting up the sound effects because you guys don't need that. Cycle the camera music. Okay. Okay. Sweatband. You know, too many people, somebody find me on the internet some nice rainbow style things I can wear that don't have green in them. And then I'll wear them. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Hopefully things won't freeze and we're just going to keep it moving. Let me have a sip of tea and a sip of water. And we've got 1 hour. I think we can make this happen in an hour. Hello, welcome to part 2 of the Agarrio Coding Challenge. In this challenge, I am going to attempt to add networking. So this is where I last left off. Obviously, this is not the fully formed game Agarrio. It will not be by the end of this video, but it'll give you a lot of the tools and basics if you wanted to recreate it. But hopefully you're watching this to learn about how to do some of this stuff and invent your own idea anyway. So this was what I had before. I had this sort of like world that I'm in that I can move around and I can start eating other little dots. So, but now what I need to do is take this. This is a one-player version of the game. There's no, all the dots are just created randomly. I need to make a version where if I launch it in a browser and you launch it in another browser, we're both seeing each other in each other's canvas. So I'm not going to start from the very, very beginning with this because I do already have a playlist and set of tutorials about Node and WebSockets. So I'm just going to show you that tutorial makes this example. See how in this canvas, I am drawing a little pattern here. I'm going to refresh that because really what I want to draw is a nice rainbow. That's the worst rainbow ever drawn in the history of time. But you can see as I draw here, it shows up over there. As I draw here, you know, it shows up on the other screen. So what is the schematic? What's the diagram of the things that are happening here? There is browser instance 1. That's a browser. There is browser instance 2. And in this case, both browser instances are on my laptop, and that's how I'm going to demonstrate everything today. But certainly, the idea here is that I could be playing this here in New York, and you could be playing it in London, or in Rio, or in Tokyo, or in Istanbul, whatever, any city that you could think of around the world. I don't know why those cities popped into my head, but they did. So, and then there is a server, which is written in node.js. And the canvas, the game itself, is written just in using p5.js client side. And what's happening here is there is communication. These clients don't talk to each other. They both talk to the server. And when one talks to the server, I can send my position to the server, and the server can then send my position back to the other one. So I think this is the way. There's a lot of different ways you could probably implement this. I think what I'm going to do is have each client drive around its own world and broadcast its position to the server, and then the server will broadcast the positions of all the other clients back to all the other clients so they can draw those other clients in their own window. That sounds a little bit like loop-de-loop-de, but hopefully it'll start to make sense once we start to program it. So, okay, you can't hear me. Hopefully, I see somebody in the chat saying they can't hear me, but hopefully everybody else can hear. Let me know if there's a sound problem. Okay, so let me close this and get this open here. And what I'm going to do now, the first thing that I want to do is in this sockets example, this is the actual code. There's a folder, oh, I'm in the wrong window. Stop, pause. Okay, there's going to have to be an edit point there. Mathieu, who is, helps me so wonderfully with the YouTube channel, this will have to be a point where, because I walked over there and then I didn't switch the camera. So, because I don't have my automatic sensor that just does that automatically that I keep intending to set up. And so let me do that again. So I have to press 1 when I do that. Okay. Okay, so over here, what I want to do is, I want to come to this Agario example. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Finder. Let me do this one more time because why did I lose that folder? Should have it here. Okay. Try that one more time. Okay, I'm going to come back over here, and this is where I have the code for both of those projects. So this is this is the code for the first Agario example, and this is the code for that sockets example that does the shared drawing canvas. So now what I want to do is I want to grab, there's this public folder right here. This public folder is where the client-side code lives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Agario folder, and I want to leave this. I'm going to do something a little weird. I'm going to do canvas. So I just want to be able to refer to this code. I'm going to put that in a different folder, and I'm going to take Agario and put that into here. So now you'll notice the node server is running on the port 3000. So if I type localhost 3000, it's like I don't see anything. But now if I go to canvas, you'll see this is that program. And if I then go to Agario, that didn't show. Oh, because you know why it didn't show up? Nah. Let's check. Oh, Agario 1. I forgot that I called it Agario 1. There it is there. So I'm just now, my node server is serving both the shared canvas client code and the Agario code. And that's useful to me because right now I want to be able to pull pieces of the code from the shared canvas into Agario so I can not have to retype all that socket code from scratch. Okay, so now let's go back to Adam. And what I want to do is, pause, timeout. Frustrating moment here. This happened to me the other day. I have to, I don't want to waste a lot of time with this, but okay, it's fine. Okay, never mind. I had a weird glitch that I'm not going to worry about. Okay. So Mathieu, sorry, that's another edit point. Then I'm just going to come right back into it here. So I'm not going to adjust the server at the moment. This is all the code for the server. And again, it does the sort of basic stuff of setting up a port, listening for connections, spitting something out to the console when somebody connects, and then there's some messaging stuff. The messaging stuff is all going to have to change. The messaging stuff is what is happening for the shared canvas drawing. I'm going to have to change that. But what I want to do is I really want to look at the client code. So I want to look at the canvas sketch, and I want to look at my Agario sketch. So I have both of these open. I have the Agario sketch and the canvas sketch. And what I want to do is add a socket. First, I want to add a socket variable. And then I want to connect. I want to connect when the sketch starts to the server. So this is the basic idea. The first thing I want to do is add a WebSocket to my Agario code. Now, I'm missing a piece, I believe, because now I believe if I were to run that, we're going to see an error message where it's like IO is not defined. So I actually, in addition to that, I need to make sure I actually access the, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. I need to make sure I actually access the socket library as well. So I can access the socket library by referencing a link to socket.io in the index.html. So I'm also going to take that and go to the Agario's index.html file and add a reference to the socket.io library. And now you'll see, there we go. And if I look back at the server, you can see we have a new client. So I'm going to restart the server. And I'm going to refresh Agario. And you can see this Agario sketch has now connected to the server. Great. OK, so now we've got step one. We've got the sketch connecting to the server. Are you guys with me here? Are you with me? Please be with me. I'm very happy. And that's really like just an exciting moment just to have it connect. So let's look now. One thing we've really got to think about is I've got to look at my Agario code. Now, this should go away. Notice how I had this bit of code at the beginning that just makes a whole bunch of blobs. But there's no point in making these random blobs anymore. The blobs should only actually exist if they're actual people playing the game. So I am going to get rid of this. In addition, when I connect, I should, in addition to just connecting, create a new instance of a blob. The server is going to have to keep track of a list of all the clients that are currently connected. And I think we're going to have to figure out some way of giving those clients an ID number. And there are probably some very clever and sophisticated ways I could come up with assigning IDs. I might just, to get started, use a counter. 0, 1, 2, 3. So we've got something that's going on here that I want to just think about here. The server needs to keep track of list of connected clients. This is data that the server needs to keep track of. And that list is essentially going to be mirrored in the client as well. And then the server is just going to update the positions continuously. So when I go back to the server code, right, remember now it's very tricky to keep track of what's the server, what's the client, especially because they're both written in JavaScript. There's a nicety to that. But I'm going to go back to the server. And what I want to do is add a variable. So I want a variable at the top, and I'm going to call it blobs. Okay? So that is all of the blobs that are currently connected. Okay? And I think it would be useful probably to create a blob object. A little unsure about this, but let's do this for right now. What if I create I don't know if I really need a constructor function, but let's just do it just for the sake of argument. A blob has an x, a blob has a y, and a blob has an ID. So I don't know, but in other words, that list should always be keeping track of what's the blob's ID and where is it. So I wrote a constructor function just in case I need to use it, but I'm not entirely sure I do just yet because I'm just doing this on the fly. So when we have a new connection, oh, the socket gets an ID. I have an idea. Why don't we use that? And we might end up using like some kind of like hash table-y thing where we look up the client in a list based on its ID. There's so many things we could eventually add to this. We'll see. But basically, at this moment, when we have a new client, what I want to do is create a blob, which is a new blob object with socket.id. Now, I don't know how I'm going to get the XY position just yet, so we'll figure that out later. I'm just going to type in 0, 0 right now. And then I want to say blobs.push blob. So in other words, the moment that someone's connected, we then have a new client. Now, I think that actually the truth of the matter is, even better, now have an idea. Maybe the client should, in addition to just connecting, send a message like start. So maybe there should be, right, because can't I get, when a user socket, okay, hold on, I have to think about this. When the server gets a message called mouse, yes, we should get the particular socket. We should still have access to that socket ID. So let's try something. Let's say there's a message called start, and the message that comes in is data.x, data.y. And I don't want to broadcast that back. What I want to leave that. So what I just want to see is what I want is and I want to see socket. Sorry, I'm figuring this out as I go. It's hard to like talk it through and do it. Okay, this is what I want to do. I don't actually want to create the blob the moment the connected. I mean, I want the client to explicitly also send an additional message, because here what I want to do is make a new blob object and then have the client send in its XY position. So let's now go to the client's code. And here, what I want is to send, how do I send something? I need to go back to my previous example, which this is how I send something to the server. So I'm going to grab this code and go back to my Agarrio sketch. And I want to send to the server right? The server's going to make, the server made that, I lost a little bit of code there. Sorry, let me get that back. Socket.emit. So, and I want this to be start. So I want the data to be blob.x, blob.y. And by the way, the blobs all need a size. So does the server keep track of the size? Does the client keep track of the size? I guess they both do. For right now, they're both going to keep track of it. So let's make a size, which is, I think, blob.r, I assume. Which, by the way, can't I just emit the blob? It's going to have all this other stuff in it. So I'm going to do this right now. So there's definitely a way I can clean this up, right? Because essentially what I just made this blob object, and then I make this data object, which is what I'm sending. I can clean that up in a bit. But, OK, so I make the blob object, and just to be sure, it's R, yep. And then I want to send that. So let's see if this works. Let me go back to the server code, and I realize what I'm going to get. In addition, I also want the blob to have an R to keep track of the size. And I want to see that here as well, just to make sure it's all coming in, and make it with data.r. So there's a lot of redundancy here, but this should give us the basic idea, right? If I restart the server, and I now refresh the client, we have connected. I got undefined. So I got the ID, and I got 64. Why did I get undefined for the X's and Y's? So I'm going to have to debug that. Where's my debugging music? Someday I'll have it. Let's look into this. So where are things being sent? Oh, I bet you I know why. So the blob is actually using vectors. So it has a position vector. So instead of there when I'm sending the information, I actually need to see send blob.pos.x, blob.pos.y. So now, if I were to refresh this and see, we can see now the client connects and it sends its ID, its X and its Y, and its size. So just to make things kind of have a little variety right now, what I want to do is I want the blob to send in a random location and a random size. And the size will be smaller, between 8 and 24. So let's refresh this again. And interestingly, there's a zoom thing happening because everything's based on having a size of 64. But that's fine. I'm not going to, there's that thing where we're zooming. I'm going to just leave that be for right now. So whoops, I went to the wrong place. And we can see that, it's very hard to debug in Node because now I'm printing out these floating point things. We're getting all these values, but you can see the stuff is in different places. So this is really good, right? We both have we have now a client who connects, who gets a unique ID, and who broadcasts its starting, I'm attached here, who broadcasts its starting X and Y and size. Okay. Here we go. Let's keep moving, everybody. I'm excited. We're getting to this. Okay. So now, here's the thing. Every time through draw, the blob updates its location. So what I think we need to do right now is update the server's sense of where I am. So what I need to do here is now say in draw, I want to do this again. But I want to emit an update message. So I could probably combine these two, but in the beginning, a start message means I'm a new blob, and now in draw, I want to update my X and Y location continuously. Now, latency and scale and all that are going to be complicated questions we're going to have to deal with at some point, or maybe I won't deal with it, but you will have to deal with it. But this is kind of getting started. Right, the chat, someone writes, don't forget to delete blobs of disconnected clients, which I'll certainly have to do at some point. Okay, so now what I want to do is in the server, I need, whoops, sorry, I have too many things open. I'm going to just go to the server. In the server code, I need to deal with another message. So that's the start message. And this is an update message. And I'm going to leave this in here. And now instead of creating a new blob and putting it in the array, what I want to do is find the blob with that ID. Now I'm going to do this in a terrible way. I'm going to do this in a brute force method of just looping through the array to find the correct blob. Later I would love to improve this by using kind of like a dictionary lookup. But I'm going to, just to have the simplicity of having an array right now, I'm going to just leave it this way. So which is, I'm going to start with a blob called which is the one, actually I'm just going to say var blob. And then I'm going to loop through the length of that array. And I'm going to say if blob.id, if a socket.id equals blob's index i.id, right? I want to find the blob who has the same ID as the socket. Then I want to say blob equals blob's index I. And then what I just want to do is update the location. So I want to say blob.x equals data.x. Blob.y equals data.y. And blob. Again, I could certainly improve this and just copy the object or make it the same object. But for simplicity, I'm going to say blob.r equals data.r. So this is essentially here now updating that array. So what I'm doing now is as the blobs update their location, the array, keeping track of where all the blobs are, gets updated as well. Okay. Now I don't need pos.x here. This is accidental because of the way that I programmed it. Maybe you could do this in a different, better way. But I'm using a vector in the client, but I'm not using a vector in the server. Vector object, that is. Okay, so let's see what happens now when I restart the server. And I also do this. We should see now, you can see here, you can see that the location is moving continuously, and it's just, I don't know, it's going down. Let's see if I move, let's see if I can like move into the client to see it. Now it's going back up. So we're not seeing anything move, right? Because it only moves, it's drawn relative to itself. But you can see that this is actually working on some level. And by the way, I'm going to have to put some, constraints around where the blobs can move to. Okay, so we're good. We've got now every blob, and you can see now if I were to connect a second one, you would see here, and if I kill the server for a second, we should see, I only see one ID. So let me try that again. Let me hit refresh here, and we hit refresh here, and there should be We have a new client. Oh, okay, hold on. There's an error here. Cannot set property X of undefined. So I got some sort of error. It must be, if I don't restart the server. No, we did get 2 clients. So this is true. I really have to always just restart the server because the server's got this persistent list of clients. And if somebody connects and then can't find that in the list, we're going to have sends an update message. So restart the server. So, there's some cleanup here I need to do. But I don't know why I'm not seeing more than one client message. I'm going to time out here for a second to try to investigate this. This will have to get edited out of the public version of this because I'm a little confused. What I want to do is take this out. Whoops. And run the server. So 1 client connected. AAA is the last 4 digits. And now, whoops. Another client connected. Let's close this. So I definitely had both clients connect with 2 different ID numbers and 2 different locations. So why? Let's do something now where in the client, so I'm going to put this back in, and I'm just going to only console log the socket ID, and I'm going to change the client to have, I'm going to change the client to have a frame rate of 1, so those update messages don't come in so fast. And I'm going to close these. And so here we're seeing kind of a heartbeat every frame of that 1 client's ID. And now I'm going to connect another client. We have a new client, and I see the heartbeat of the second one. And how come I don't see the heartbeat of the first one anymore? Let's see if I have an error here. There's no errors there. Oh, no, they're both there. That's just weird how... Oh, you know what it is? The code is actually working just fine. You know what browsers do? They try to be smart. And maybe you haven't figured this out yet, but I'm going to show you. Look, I'm seeing now the B client. And now I am seeing the A client and the B client. Let's see if I can make it do both of them. Nope. Now I'm seeing both of them. So if the window is not in focus in the browser, it shuts down that draw loop. So I'm not able to, so everyone is already, everyone in the chat has already figured this out at the same time I did or earlier. But anyway, okay, so I can go back into the video now. Let me get back to where I was. And I'm going to go to the client and undo a bunch of things. I kind of like having the frame rate 1. Oh, that's all I did in the client. Oh, I think the client is good now. Whoops, and the server, what did I do? I just changed this. So that's good. Okay. Okay. So how are we doing on time? 3:50. All right. We're in good shape, everybody. So I'm going to go back into the video and explain what was wrong. And Mathieu, who is, I could just only thank over and over again as much as possible, will splice this together. And I'm going to now say, let me run the server again. Okay. I am back after some debugging, which I realized, aha, browsers will play tricks on you sometime. Notice I'm only seeing the updated location of one client. It's not because it's not working. It's because my browser is actually only showing me one client, and the other tab, which is hidden, has gone to sleep. This is a smart thing, because why update an animation in a tab you can't see? But if I pull this tab out and make it visible, now you can see that I have both of them showing up as they're both, neither's asleep. So this is something I just have to keep an eye on as I develop things further. So, okay, so I'm going to put this back. I'll pull it out, or just actually close it. I'll pull it out later when I need to. So now we need to add a feature. There's a problem here, which is that I'm letting these blobs just go infinitely off into like an infinitely large space, and you can see its location currently is like negative 1,000 something. So I need to put something in the code to constrain them to a fixed space in the screen. And I could be there's a lot of ways I could do this, but I'm going to just do it in a really I'm just going to write blob.constrain. And in the blob object, I'm going to write a function called this.constrain, and I'm going to make that blob.pos.x equals constrain, blob.pos.x 0 and width. And actually, I'm going to say negative width to width, and I'm going to say y negative height to height. And because it's 0, 0, I think is technically the center, the way that I've written this, if you remember from the previous tutorial. So again, I could make a bigger world, I could make a smaller world, I could make it a flexibly sized world, depending on how many blobs are there. But I'm just going to do this, and this should give me a nice, now, if I refresh this, you can't see me moving, but if I look at this location, at some point, I don't remember what the size of the window is, I think it's around 600, you're going to see that it sort of stopped at negative 600. So this is really useful because as I'm testing it, I want to be able to see things within sort of like a similar world. Okay, so now what I want to do now, so I have everything working. I have a server which is receiving information from clients, each client having its own blob that's moving around the screen. What I'm not doing is broadcasting back to the clients where everything else is. So, oh boy, I'm realizing there's a big complication that's going to arise in a moment. But it's okay. We're gonna get through this together. Be in a happy place figuring this out. But what I would at least want to be able to see is step 2 here. I want to see somebody else's blob appear on my screen. I want my blob to appear on their screen. Okay, so here we go. Let's figure out how to do that. What I need to do is I need the server to broadcast. And if you look here, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this to start. Let's go back to the server code. Or have I think the server code, I've destroyed it. I need to go and grab, sorry. So what I want to do is I just want to create I'm trying to think here. I want to do is create just a heartbeat that every so often the server sends a list of all the current blobs and their location. So let's go back to the canvas example, which sorry, I lost my original code. Let me find it. Let me find it this way. Sockets, server. So what I'm looking for is this, io.sockets emit. Sorry, I could have, what I want to do is I'm going to write a function called setInterval. And what I want to do is have a heartbeat function happen every, I'm going to have it once per second now just to make it really slow to update. And I want this function heartbeat to emit heartbeat. I call it a heartbeat. I think that's a common word in networking. Like it's like your heart is continuously beating at regular intervals. This is something that the server's just going to do at regular intervals. And what's it going to do? It's going to send out the full list of blobs. And actually, right now, it's just going to send out hello. So I just want to see, and I just want to see a message. I want to see that I can get the client to receive a message from the server every second. Okay? So let's see how that works. So I'm going to go back to the client code. And the client code, I need to go back into the canvas and see, okay, I need to add this, this on method. I want to do something when I receive that heartbeat. So I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to put it in setup. And when I receive the heartbeat, I just want to say console.log data. So I just want to see that message come in, okay? So now I've added a heartbeat to the server and a heartbeat to the client. So let's run this again. Let's run the client. And we should see hello, 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 hello. Server is sending that. Now let's change the server to do something else. Instead of sending hello, I've got to go back to the server. Let's actually send that array. Let's just put the array in there. Let's see what happens if we just put the array in there. We might have to stringify it. I'm not sure, but let's just put the array in there and see what we get. Ooh, that was a loud noise. Okay, so I'm going to restart the server, and I'm going to refresh the client. And object, let's look in object. There it is. It's an array with, so it's actually sending it as an object, which is terrific. You can see the ID, R. So I'm actually getting all this information in the client. Now, bear with me here. Let's connect a second client, and a third client, and a fourth client, and let's look at what that heartbeat looks like now. I got to go look at this. An array of 4 things. There we go. All 4 things right there. So what is it that we want to do? All I've got to do now is loop through those 4 things and display them on the screen. The server's sending me, here's where everything is, here's where everything is, here's where everything is. Oh, this is wonderful. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add to the client code. Where's my client code? So many different things. Here it is. I'm in draw. Okay, so here, so I need an array. Oh, that array blobs, I already have it. I'm going to say blobs equals data, because that was an array. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for var I equals 0, I is less than, oh, I have that there. So funny that I have this here already. And I was going through it backwards, but they're not actually blob objects. Boy, I'm just going to draw, just to see that they're there. I'm just going to draw an ellipse. Blobs index I dot x, blobs index I dot y, blobs index I dot r times 2. And I'm going to draw it, and I'm going to make it a different color. And I'm going to say, let's just make it like a blue or something so we see it as a different color. So let's just see how that works. There we go, look. Those are the other blobs, and I can kind of walk around and try to find them. Those are from the other clients. And I could go to the other client, and I could try to find probably, presumably I have to refresh, I could find the other blobs. Now, one thing I might like to do is actually display the ID, because that's going to kind of help things along. I don't know what's going on there if new blobs are connecting continuously. Let's just see blobs.length. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, I don't know why I have so many. So there's some debugging that I've got to do here. 7? No, it's right. I guess I have 7 tabs open. Do I have 7 tabs open? I can't keep track. You know what though? The server hasn't been restarted and I've been doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So in these kind of cases, it's generally good to start over. So let's just do 2 blobs and see if things are working. So I'm gonna, whoops, and I went to the wrong server, the wrong project, 3000. Here we go. Okay, so time out. What's going on here? I think there's something going on with the way that I draw everything relative to itself. Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. Never mind. Back in. I'm drawing myself. And I'm drawing myself only once per second. So as I move around, it sort of looks like I'm still drawing myself in a previous historical location. So that I'm going to fix as I stop drawing myself, which I need to do. So one thing I want to do is I want to draw the blobs with their ID. So let me just for a second see if I can make that happen really kind of quickly in a like a not so awful. I'm going to say fill 255 text blobs index ID, and then I want to say blobs index I.x, blobs index I.y plus r blobs index I.r times 3. Let's have it appear below, and let's say text align center. Am I getting the ID? Yeah, okay, ooh, boy, that's not. So let's make the ID a lot smaller. I think probably the window, yeah, text size 12. And the times 3 was unnecessary. Okay, so I want to see, let's make this 6. Well, what's going on with text size? Okay, that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I just want to be able to see quickly the ID below each of the blobs. Okay. We're getting somewhere. We're getting close. Now here's the thing. I want to not draw myself. There's going to be a third part to this, clearly. We're getting pretty close. And I'm going to release this code and you guys can kind of get further on your own. I'll come back and do the third part at some point. But the couple things I want to fix here. Number one is I want to know my own ID and not draw myself. So I need to have, in this particular sketch, my own ID. And I would like to send from the server a message just back to myself. Now, so when I send this first start, I want in server to, I want the server to send a message back with the client's ID. Like the client needs to know its ID. So the question is, how do we use Node WebSockets to send a message only to this particular client? And it's probably something like socket.emit or something, but I'm just going to look this up. Set node sockets send message to one specific client. So here, so how do we do this? You have to grab the client ID, and we can just say io.client session ID .send. Let's see if that works. So let's see if this works. Like, what if I then say this? And so I want to say socket.id. I wonder if the client has this built in somehow. Does the client have this built in somehow? Let's look at this. Oh, look, there's the ID. Look, the client already knows its own ID. Isn't that wonderful? So I don't need to send it back. The client knows its own ID. Now, why does the client have to have it as without the without the extra slash and number? But that's fine. We can work that out. So what I want to do here now, so I don't need this. What I want to do in the client is I want to, when I'm drawing them, I want to only draw them if the ID is not my own ID. So I want to say as long as blobs index I.id does not equal socket.id. But the problem with that is blob's ID has a couple extra characters at the beginning. So I'll just do this. I can just chop those off, I think, with substring. Substring is a method that will give me a part of a string. And if I go back to the sketch and look, please don't move around. You can see that there are just 2 extra characters, 0, 1. So I want the substring to start at 2. So I want the substring to start at 2, comma, and let's make this simpler. Let's say var id equals blobs index I.id, and then I can say id.substring 2 to the length of the string. So I want to make a substring from the second character all the way to the end. And as long as that's not the case, then I can draw that particular blob. Okay, so let's see here. So we should be good in that, well, there's a whole lot of blobs. Now we can see that I can find other blobs of varying sizes if I kind of poke around the screen, but I am not drawing myself. So we're in pretty good shape here. Let's change a couple things. First of all, let's restart the server. I think that we can now in the server do away with this console.log that's happening over and over again as everyone updates itself. And we can, what we can do is now really test out 2 particular clients. So to do this, what I want to do is kind of divide my, I'm going to get rid of the, I want to divide my screen in half here. And I'm going to just go to have 2 windows open that aren't connected yet to the server. Then I want to run the server, connect this one to, Agario 1. And you can see there's a client connected. Then I want to connect this one to Agario 1. And there's another client connected. So we can see what their locations, starting locations are, and I should be able to now move around and try to find it. Anybody? Where are you, other blob? I know you're out there somewhere. So, okay, so we're going to have to do this. It's nice to just look at these circles on the screen. Okay, so I got to figure out what went wrong here. I think we're on the right path. Let's do a little debugging here. Let me make this a bit smaller. Oh, I don't know why. Oh, there it is. I don't know where I couldn't find you before. Come back. Which way? Let's go over here and look at where these blobs are. There's 2 of them. One is at, oh, negative 600, 600, which is over here, I think. Should be the top left. So where am I? Okay, I am back. Okay, so I'm going to just console.log the blob's x and y position so I can take a look at that. And the other thing I was going to do here is only say if mouse is pressed, then update the location. So I'm actually not going to move a particular blob unless, unless you click the mouse. So what I want to do is I need to find terminal again. This is going to help me debug. So I'm going to kill the server. I'm going to hit refresh, which will make it so that it doesn't actually connect. And then I'm going to restart the server. I'm going to start one blob, and it's saying undefined. So hold on, I need to fix that. Blob.pause.x, blob.pause.y. So let me refresh again. And you can see, okay, so, and that's now showing both of them. So hold on, I'm going to restart the server and refresh this. Okay, so you can see here, this particular blob has shown up at this location, 150, 24. And let me make this a little bigger. There we go. And now I'm going to go to the other blob. I'm going to start a new one. Whoops. And you can see there it is. So now I want to move this blob a little bit. Whoops. And let me see if and that worked. There we go. And the thing is, it's only updating once a second. And so I can move closer. And you can see, okay, so let me fix that. So this is totally working, by the way. But let's kill the server again. I'm going to make this look a little bit better. So I don't know what's reasonable, but I'm going to have the server have its heartbeat 30 frames per second is, and there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So let's have the heartbeat happen every like 33 milliseconds. Let's see if it can handle that. So I'm going to restart the server. And I'm going to hit refresh here. And I'm going to take that out. And I'm going to hit refresh here. Whoops. I'm going to hit refresh here. And we should see now as I move. And let's get a third one going. Let's get a I'm going to get a third one going. And one more. Come on, you can do it, Agario. There we go. So we can see here, if I were to move around, they're all responding to each other. We've got a multiplayer, kind of beginnings of a multiplayer Agario here. So, okay, everybody, this is the end of part 2. I don't know how long this video was or if it was at all understandable or useful. At the very least, you sort of saw how difficult this is, and I will release the code for what I've got so far. So there's a big missing piece here, which is that I've got to check intersection and figure out what to do, actually add the game mechanics where when they intersect, the bigger one eats the smaller one, the smaller one's game is over, maybe you can start again. There's a lot more steps to add to this. But this, I think, is going to get you a little bit further as you can see the sort of basic mechanics of having a server keep track of a list of everyone connected, have the clients implement their own motion physics, update their location to the server, and have the server send those new locations back to the clients so that they update. So, there's a question of, how do you deploy this? What would happen if you suddenly had 100,000 people playing this all at once? Is Node and WebSockets going to support that? But you can sort of see the basic ideas of how you can have this more sophisticated networking, multiplayer networking working. Thanks for watching this particular video. This was part 2, and at some point I will release a part 3, which I do a few more steps, although it might be a while before I get to that. Thanks again. Okay. Somebody in the chat is telling me something about declaring ID at the top of the code, and I think you're right that is no longer necessary. I'm not using that for anything. So I can take that out if that's what you were telling me. At one point, I was going to keep track. At socket.id always has this particular socket's ID. Okay, let's do a quick. Okay, so there's a couple things. There's a lot of things I haven't gotten to today that I wanted to get to, but and I'll get to them later, another time. But let me see here. Part 3, I'm definitely not going to get to. The blobby circles thing. That can be done. That can be done before I really have to go. So let's make that happen. Let me just set myself up in... let me do this in a slightly different way. I'm going to do... whoa, what happened there? Sorry, something weird happened. And so I'm just getting myself set up here. And I'm just going to go back to am I still running the Python server? Okay. Yep. Okay, so what I'm going to do here in here. Oh, I forgot this is now got all the socket stuff in it. I'm going to get rid of that. Just going to get rid of the socket stuff just to simplify. Oops. And close this. And this actually technically could go before, I think in the order of release, could go before the networking thing. Okay, so what I want to do is make this more blobby than just a circle. So, and one thing I want to do in terms of the zoom thing, there we go, is that. Okay, so the cameras are about to shut off. Okay, so this is going to be another coding challenge. The whiteboard is visible. And I need this over here. I'm over erasing the whiteboard in case you're wondering where I went. And what I'm going to do is stretch for a second, do some yoga. I have none of my sound effects or anything, but okay, so here we are. And really, I'm going to, close a bunch of things. This is important. And let's just do this. Okay. Okay. So here we go. So, all right. I don't know what to say this is. Oh boy, I really have to go. This is a bad idea. It's fine. I'm going to do it anyway. Thank you guys for being here today. At one point, there were actually over 200 people watching this, which is kind of insane. And rightfully so. There are only a little over 100 people right now, which makes a lot of sense based on how this has been going. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to Blobby. Time out, let's start over. Hello and welcome to a coding challenge, which I'm going to call Blobby Coding Challenge. I want to make something that's a blob. This is sort of loosely a part of the Agarrio coding challenges, where there are these circular things moving around the screen. But I'm in this coding challenge only thinking about just that sort of stationary circle, which is a nice, perfectly round, beautiful, happy little circle right there. But I want it to be wavy, curvy on the edges, and kind of feel a little blobby. So let's think about. I'm going to come over to the whiteboard here and draw some stuff. Right? This is a perfect circle, which is drawn as an ellipse. But another way I could draw this perfect circle is by using a call to a function called begin shape and a call to a function called end shape And in between there, I could make a lot of calls to a function called vertex. So if I were to say, put a vertex here, put a vertex here, put a vertex here, vertex, 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 and connect them all, then I have what I started with, a nice, perfect circle. But what if I were to make this vertex go out over here and this one come in over here? Then I might have something that appears kind of curvy. And what if these wiggle all around and kind of blob around? Then I have something that appears kind of squishy and blobby. Now there are a couple different ways I could do this. Option number one, I could do some kind of physics simulation with a lot of springy forces. So I have this like almost as if these are all connected by springs, and as you pull one, it pulls the other, and it kind of flips back and oscillates and jiggles and that sort of thing. I'm going to do that in another coding challenge. You can take a look at one of my Toxic Libs kind of like cloth simulations to get an idea of how you might do that. Another way I could do this is with Perlin noise. And I think I'm going to try that right now. Or I could use like a sine wave. In other words, all I want to do is alter this radius, right? Each of these points is calculated based on an angle, which I'll call theta, and a radius. If I iterate over all the different angles but change the radius and have those radii move up and down randomly, I can get something that seems kind of squishy and blobby. So let's see if we can make that happen. The first thing I want to do is go into the blob object and find this show function, which is right down here. And you can see what's happening here. I'm drawing an ellipse. But I'm going to change that now. And I'm going to do a couple things. One is I'm going to say push and pop, because I'm going to also use translate, because I want to first translate to the center of this object. And then, once I've done that, I can say begin shape, and I can say end shape, and then I can have a loop. So what do I want my loop to do? I want an angle to start at 0, and I want to go all the way to 2, how do you spell 2 pi? And I'm going to go up by some amount. I'm going to say 0.1, and I really should be more thoughtful about this, but I'm just going to randomly do this. And then I'm going to say I have an x, which is now this object's radius times cosine of that angle. This is a polar to Cartesian conversion, which I would refer you to another video where I go through this math in a bit more detail. But now I can just set the vertex to that x and y position. So let's run this and see if we get basically the same result. I find it hard to believe that that's really what happened. Am I looking at the correct code? Let me comment that out. Oh, it's not there. Shockingly, that looks way too similar. I guess that worked. Oh, you can see that it actually changed because it's not so perfect there on the right. Let's just to see how this is actually working, let's draw little ellipses and take out the vertices. Right, you can see that's what I've actually done. I've drawn all these little circles and connected them. So there we go. So this actually worked. The thing is, I want this variable, this r, to be something that changes. So what if I said r equals this dot r plus a random amount between -5 and 5, and I used r instead? What would we get now? We would get something that looks like this. You can see those radii are changing. What if I did something where I said I want to have an offset which equals map sine of the angle which goes between -1 and 1 to -5 and 5. And what if I say angle plus frame count times 0.01 or something? So, so this is now this dot r plus offset. That didn't do very much. Oh, you know, I just realized, yeah, that's just moving all the vertices together with the same offset. So they have to be offset from each other. Anyway, the point of what I want to do is not that. Actually, I want to make this sine wave thing work, okay? What I want is for each one, I want to get this to work. Let's make this actually work. I want it to do this. I want you to just see what it looks like when there's a sine wave. So I want to have this, I need a separate value that really should work, or I guess maybe these angles are changing by too much. hold on. Let's make this work, right? Do I need to multiply this by like some tiny amount or something? What have I done wrong? Okay. Pause. Time out. Well, let me figure. I'm drawing a blank here for a second. So they each should have. Let's put the ellipses in for a second. Right? So this is the idea, but I want them to be. I want it to look like this, but I want them to be offset from each other. So, right, if I do this, oh, because they're all frame count is the same. Is this not enough? Like, if I do this, yeah. Oh, maybe I just need to multiply it by like a lot. There we go. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. Whoops. Oh, I'm back. So actually, the angles I just forgot are only between 0 and 2 pi. So there's only one cycle of the sine wave. So I actually want to multiply the angle by a lot if I want to see that sort of oscillation. So I can get something kind of like this, and I could play around with these. Values. Anyway, you could get the idea of how I might, and I could you could get the idea of how I can do various kinds of different offsets to change the quality of that shape. But let's actually just use Perlin noise, which I think will produce some interesting results. So what if I were to say noise, and I want to have an x offset, which I'll say equals 0, noise of x offset, which goes between 0 and 1, and I want to map that between -25 and 25, and I want that x offset to increase by some amount for each one of those. So if we see this, you can see now I have this kind of blobby looking thing, and each time I refresh, it looks a little stranger. Now you'll notice I have an issue where I'm not able to connect the last point to the first point very well, and there's ways we can kind of improve that. But you can see I've got like this kind of goofy looking shape. Now what I can actually do, there's a couple things I could do. Number one is I could add a y offset. And the y offset is kind of like a global variable for this object. It could start at 0 itself. And the y offset is a thing that doesn't change for each one, but just changes over time itself. So if I use two-dimensional Perlin noise, now you're going to see this kind of like blobby-ish shape. Now the y offset is changing rather fast, so I might want to slow that down quite a bit. And you can see now I've got a more undulating like type thing. I could have also, by the way, just not used two-dimensional noise, but I could just say x offset plus y offset, and you'll see this is doing something. This looks like it's actually kind of like spinning because the noise values are actually kind of rotating around. So that's another effect that you can kind of get by just like changing where the noise is beginning. And even this doesn't bother me so much, but you could consider using something like this in Agario to make it kind of a little bit squishier and that sort of thing. So this kind of gets you the basic idea of having a bit of a Perlin noise ball, so to speak. I think what I'll do, hopefully remind me in the comments, is when I publish this code, I might simplify this even further to just have that kind of shape thing, and you kind of tweak it, and let's think about improvements that we could make to tie the last point back to the first point itself. Okay, so thanks for watching this. At some point, I'd like to show you how to add some spring forces to this, which would be another nice kind of quality to it as well. Okay, thanks for watching this coding challenge, and I'll see you again in a future video. Yeah, thank you. Go to your meeting. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here. Somebody requested the Perlin noise song, which I will play myself out with if I can load this up here. I'll be back next Tuesday or Wednesday. 9, 2, 7, 6, 1. So this was kind of a mess today, but I did get some practice in. And I thank you guys for watching. I'm going to Whoops, what did I? Oh, that was just the, sorry, that was my sound effect version.
This is noise, Perlin noise that is.
We did some stuff today. I kind of got some Agario networking stuff in there. I talked about the history of processing a little bit. And I'll be back on Tuesday to start this fall course. I'm going to lower the volume here. I think I did. That's what I did. To start this fall course and stuff and more stuff that I'm doing. My brain is completely fried, but I enjoyed being back here live on YouTube again. I'm glad that you guys were here to watch. If you subscribe, like, share, all that kind of stuff. Keep watching, keep giving me feedback, post in the rainbow topics, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not entirely sure which it will be. And what I'm going to cover, by the way, is JavaScript and strings in JavaScript and some of the P5 DOM library stuff. That's what I'll be doing next week and getting started with that particular syllabus. Okay? I really got to run. I've got 25 minutes to bike back over to NYU, and hopefully I'll make it. So I'm going to turn off the stream and enjoy your holiday weekend if you're here in the United States. It's Labor Day, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thanks again, you guys.